your pen and paper. We're recording. So you'll get access if you're on our Mighty Network platform to be part of that later and plug into that. Again, Alive at Last exists to help women who've experienced exploitation or any type of abuse, trafficking, to live a life of freedom, to heal, live a life of freedom, and discover their God-given purpose. That's what we're all about. And so jump into our training. You may want to jot down a question. She's a natural educator. So you'll want to jot down a comment, something that you've received from the training, and engage at the end in just a minute. So Crystal, we're so glad to have you. We welcome you. Thankful for the gifts that you bring to Alive at Last. Jump right in.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to being here and sharing with you guys what this looks like for you guys in 2026 and beyond. So I'm going to share my screen. If you guys will just let me know if you guys can see it, that would be great. Thumbs up. We all good? You guys can see Release, Restore, Relaunch?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me know. All right. Before we begin this conversation today, I just really want to define what the space is that we're going to be talking about today. Oftentimes we think that we are in a hustle conversation. We got to get as much out there as possible. But really, we don't need more pressure. We don't need a hype moment. We really just need a pause. So today, we're going to talk about how to pause. We're going to talk about women building meaningful lives, carrying real responsibility, and quietly wondering maybe why what we used to do doesn't really work anymore. So if you're reshaping your life, perhaps a business, perhaps your impact, your legacy, your leadership, right now, this training is just for you. Because we don't want you to feel like there's pressure in your life. We understand that really you need alignment. Alignment with not only the one who created you, right? But alignment and balance in your life. So let's just take a deep breath together and let those shoulders drop. Oftentimes I'm sitting here and I realize they've come up to almost my ears, right? And I have to physically go, okay, I can breathe and I can let them drop. So let's talk really about what release, what's complete, restoring what sustains you, and relaunching into what's next for 2026 and beyond. There's a very specific silence that happens when something's not right in your life. It's not always loud. It's not always dramatic. It just feels heavy. Now, personally, I have heard that and felt that in emergency rooms at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I have a very medically complex kiddo. But when you hear it in life, you begin to realize what you're doing might look good on paper and logically, but your body, it knows the truth. It knows something just is off, but you're not quite sure what it is. So that silence usually shows up right as a pivot or a breakdown or possibly a reckoning, really. So if you're here today and you've been thinking, I should be further along in life, or, man, I just do not recognize myself anymore. Or maybe I am so exhausted from trying to carry it all. You're not broken. Have you heard that before? Have you been assured that you're not broken? What you are is you're being invited into a new place, a new season. Now, this is not going to be a mindset talk. This is not productivity pep rally, but this is really going to be a conversation about what are you being asked to release in your life? What needs to be restored? And who you're meant to relaunch for the season ahead. Now remember, seasons shift and they change. We have 4 every year, right? And so a season could be a moment. It could be months, it could be a quarter, it could be a year, it could be a decade. I had a season of infertility for 10 years. So sometimes those seasons ebb and flow, valleys and mountains, right? But because strategy in our life, without that alignment with the one who created us, guess what happens? You're going to burn out. And we don't want you to burn out. We want you to have a journey towards leadership and the self-awareness of finding that balance with Him, of being able to release all those old patterns, restoring yourself, stabilizing yourself, and relaunching into that new season. So, step one is release. Now, what does that mean? Now, we could say letting go of the old ways. Okay, but really, what does that mean? So, let me share an example. That was my car. That car and we got along well. The person who hit it and I did not get along so well. Years ago, my life came to a dead stop. One moment I'm driving through the intersection, and the next minute somebody is pounding on my window yelling, "Gotta get out, the car's gonna explode." I walked away from the accident. 2 days later, my life changed forever. I woke up with head pain that you could not describe on any pain scale in the universe. There was memory loss. I did not know my name, my phone number. Back then, we didn't have cell phones really. So you had to remember all your digits, right? And then I would forget my own name in random moments where I was. I would wake up and go, okay, I know I'm safe, but where am I? Noise in any capacity felt like somebody was just taking daggers and shoving them into my brain. The hum of a refrigerator was as loud as the loudest rock concert you've ever been to. It was insane. But slowly, quietly, something else happened. I lost the version of myself that I trusted. I had to lay down my ultimate dream that I had always had, which was to get a PhD. Not really sure why I had that dream, but that was my dream. And I had been accepted into this prestigious school, and I was in their PhD program. I was supposed to start in spring. I did never get to start. When you can't remember your name, you certainly can't remember anything for school. And all this leadership capacity that I had disappeared in a second. And the woman that I knew had a plan, execute, perform, gone. Completely gone. Now, what are you supposed to do when your identity is missing? Because it feels like those labels that we all walk along with, those are our identity. Now, our true identity is in Christ. But understanding the who and the where and the why, what am I supposed to do with that? And who I was who I thought I was always going to be then. So why do we need to release? Because typically that version of yourself that used to work, it doesn't anymore. And in my case, I didn't even recognize that person anymore. So release is not about quitting. This is really important to understand because most women don't break down because they fail. They break down because that version of themselves that used to work doesn't anymore. So instead of releasing her, we try and drag her forward with us. This is why it's so important to understand release is not an act of quitting. It is acknowledging a completion of a season. It is understanding that you may not be able to still lead from being in survival mode or over responsibility if you're a caregiver or proving yourself because somebody said you weren't enough or you believed that you weren't enough. Or maybe you're still leading from people pleasing. Codependency is strong. I'm working on a course for people right now about 9 different types of codependency. You wouldn't believe the types of codependency there is out there. And people pleasing is just one of them. And old trauma responses. They could be dressed up as work ethic, but I want to add, they also could be dressed up as survival mode. And those could be different addictions that you have encountered or felt or even lived with. You know, one of the primary addictions today is our cell phone. How many times do you find yourself just scrolling, just trying to escape for a moment? Or maybe you do what I've done many a time, where I finally roll up to the house after many a doctor's appointment and my kid goes in the house and I just need to sit in the car for a minute, right? I just need to gather my thoughts before I jump back into life. Now, sometimes we can see those as trauma responses. Sometimes that's survival. Sometimes that's actually wisdom because you know you need to take a minute to center yourself before you step back in. The why behind it becomes part of that rationale. So taking a moment right now, if you're driving, don't do this because I see somebody driving. I want you to close your eyes for a second. And I'm going to ask you a question. Where are you still leading from? Where are you leading from in your mind? Where are you leading from in your heart? Because those could be two different answers. I want you to take a mental note of what your answers are, because we're going to talk about them again in just a few minutes. So, what does this release look like? What does it really mean? So, we do need to recognize some of our chapters in our lives are over. That could be friendships, that could be places you hang out, could be books that you read, could be movies or shows that you watch. It could be relationships, work locations, places that you're involved in. Maybe you're volunteering. Maybe it's marriages. Maybe it's those addictions that have fueled your survival. And now it's time to realize you don't need them anymore. And you want to lay them down so they don't run your life anymore. Recognizing those chapters in our lives are over is actually cause for celebration. Have you ever heard it put that way? You think there's a loss, like, oh, that's over. But yet it served you in the capacity it needed to for the duration of time that it did. And now it doesn't need to. So now it can be a celebration of growth. Now you can realize it's not about you surrendering, it's about you embracing new beginnings with clarity. That survival mode that we've been talking about, many people remain trapped in survival mode. They're driven by the need to please others, to think that they need to do or be something else, to fulfill actually somebody else's expectations. But when you realize there's somebody else's expectations and not the ones for you, and that's not the best plan God has for your life, that's cause for celebration. Because when you realize you're kind of still listening in the old ways, you're still being led by those old ways, those are really preventing you from achieving your true calling, your true kingdom impact, your authentic self-expression. Somebody told me the other day, I'm just too positive all the time. And I looked at him, I said, how can you be too positive? Like, I couldn't even understand the concept. I'm like, I got Jesus, I got hope, I got opportunities and challenges and failures and things that I never saw coming, and I get to learn from them. For me, that is exciting. Not always easy. I'm going to admit that. It is not always easy. My kiddo got a major diagnosis a week ago, and we're still trying to process it. What does that mean for her life, for our life, for what her future looks like? But what I know is God's in it. What I know is He sees each one of you, and He knows what you need, where you're going, and how to get there. So what else is there to be but excited and courageous in releasing what was to what could be. Because releasing makes that space. So we're going to pause for another moment. I want you to ask yourself, what version of you is still voting on decisions that God has already released you from? So what version of you is still voting on decisions that God has already released you from? Sometimes we're so actively on a path that we don't even realize we don't need to be on the path anymore. We have this whole other opportunity over here. So that's the first part. The first part is letting go. So now we need to regulate. We've let go, but now we need to rebuild. So how do we do that? We've got to regulate. So high capacity women like yourselves, they often face unique challenges. Anyone ever felt like they have unique challenges in their life? Maybe a couple, right? 2 or 3. So without that intentional release, your attempts at that restoration through discipline without compassion for yourself becomes punishment. God's not about punishment. God's about conviction. God's about compassion and grace and mercy and discipline. But he's not about punishment. He wants you to have the best in life. Now, the question is whether we want the best in life for ourselves. And sometimes we're dysregulated, so we can't really receive that. And that's why we need the release and the restore. Because those cycles of self-punishment, they're preventing our path to healing and growth. Now, some of you may never have realized this. You are not unmotivated. You are not lazy. And you are not failing at consistency. This is really important to realize. Because we think maybe because we're caught up in something going on in our life as addictions or survival mode that we just can't overcome it. We just need to put forth our thought and our deliberation, our intention, and we'll just get over it. The reality is there's trauma. And there's trauma responses. And your central nervous system knows that you're not unmotivated. It knows you're not lazy. It knows you're not failing. It just doesn't know how to keep you out of the thought that you feel like you're in danger all the time. And that is also where we need to restore you. So releasing what was old allows your central nervous system to do something different, to rewire your brain differently, to interact with you differently. Now, after my car accident, I had to learn to function again. The person that I've been describing is probably not the person that you're looking at on the screen and you're like, she didn't know her name? Really? Because she seems pretty put together at the moment. It took me quite a while. 4 years of one migraine with another one on top of it. It was insane. And back then, they didn't know what a traumatic brain injury was. They literally would pat me on the leg and go home and sleep it off. And you're just like, what is wrong with you, doctors? Right? And I had to learn to advocate for myself in the middle of the crisis. And I didn't know how to feel. I physically had brain damage in my head that caused me to not feel emotion. And even today, there's still moments that people over here might be crying their eyes out because of something they're seeing, and I'm over here going, boy, a tear would be good. I suspect I probably should be crying, but my brain doesn't work like that anymore. So you learn to adapt, adjust, overcome, and see it through. But back then, I began to compartmentalize everything. Because feeling anything in my moments was very expensive to my mental and physical and emotional energy. It literally was enough just to get out of bed some days. And in times, that works until it doesn't. Now, here's the truth that most women never hear. When we understand that you're not unmotivated, that it is just a trauma, central nervous system response, now you are empowered with the truth and you can adjust it so you can regulate yourself in new ways. So now you're breaking up with those old stereotypes that you're just lazy or unmotivated or just failing because you're not. So now you can embrace different things because you know you're just fragmented, compartmentalized, and dysregulated. And you need support. You need vulnerability. And we have tools for those. So embracing compassionate healing for your renewal is key. So your restoration is not necessarily about rest. And oftentimes people think, oh, you just need a rest. How quick are we to say, I hope you can get some rest? What does that mean, really? Because telling our central nervous system, oh, you just need to rest, is not the answer. Understanding that restoration is regulated repetition. Now we have a tool. Regulated repetition, meaning you can rebuild trust with yourself. That's huge. When you rebuild trust with yourself, you can begin to trust that Holy Spirit within you, that gut instinct within you that we are all equipped with because we have the Holy Spirit. Jesus is there with us and he is guiding us. And as you rebuild that trust with yourself, with that repetition, little by little, trusting in the fruit of the decisions that you've made, man, that becomes thriving instead of just surviving. That's a big deal. So you don't need to heal by doing more. And oftentimes we think, oh, I got to add this and I got to do this and I need to be doing this. No, just one habit, just one anchor, one rhythm that says, I'm safe. Because that's what your central nervous system needs, to be told that you're safe. So this is where your compassion comes in, and that's compassion for yourself. This is not selfish, guys. You have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. The Bible verse says, love your neighbor as who? Yourself. So if you are treating yourself poorly, guess what you're going to do with your neighbor? You're going to treat them poorly. And if you're treating yourself poorly, but you're treating your neighbor well, you're not in authentic connection because you have to treat yourself the same way you treat your neighbor. So this opportunity of compassion for yourself is biblically based, guys. It's not about ego. And so compassion, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you all those things that have been serving you in the past to be laid down, right? So you heal by doing what stabilizes you consistently. So if I asked you right now, what in your life do you do as an action, an actual action, that you feel brings you a moment of peace, of balance? What is that? And that's going to look different for everybody, and that's okay. Now, not because you're weak, not really because you're wise, you're going to make this choice to deliberately repeat that item that came to you. That becomes your one habit, your one anchor, that rhythm that tells your body you're safe. And I want to encourage you to find a time every single day, yep, every single day, to do that one thing that just came to you. So drop in the chat what that one thing is, because you might be surprised. Somebody else may not have thought about what you thought about. And they may go, oh, I didn't think about it. That actually brings me peace too. Now, let me give you an example. For me, I'm a beach lover. Now, I don't like sand in all the places that it should not be, but I love to walk on the beach, find some good shells. I'm always looking for sea glass, right? And I love how the waves just come in, and especially at sunrise. And I'm not a sunrise person, but to see sunrise on a beach is just something to heal my heart. But really, it's about sunset for me because I like to sleep in, really. But I love taking pictures as well. So now you combine both of those, and there are people on this call that would say I take too many pictures, but she appreciates them when I send them to her. So when you think about those things that bring your heart peace, your body peace, how can you implement them in more? I just moved close to a beach. And as of March 1, I have actually told my child I will be taking a 15-minute beach run. And I will be going to the beach, and I'll be walking the beach, and then I will be coming back. But that is going to be something that I am going to start doing for my mental health, for an opportunity for her to be okay on her own, me to be on my own for a few minutes. And that one little thing is a huge shift in a variety of areas of our lives. So I want you to really think about what you can implement as that one thing. Because your journey of restoration leads to renewed joy, flowing creativity, and clarity. So as we're embracing the restoration, that's going to foster resilience as well. And it allows you to blossom into your full potential without the weight of pressure. Remember, we're about alignment, not pressure. Now, restoration is building your strength up. But really, release makes the space, restoration builds the strength. But ultimately, neither one of those is going to matter if you don't relaunch with that new concept of your identity. If I just got out of bed and I wasn't purposeful and deliberate to keep pushing forward, even with the hum of the refrigerator killing me, even with trying to drive I couldn't see, even with not being able to get into the sun because it would just cause so many issues. One of the things that I did to help myself keep progressing forward in the darkest of my times at that moment was I knew I needed to get out of the apartment. I was going stir crazy. My spouse at the time had left for the military, and I was kind of left on my own. I was caretaking of myself, and that wasn't going well, but I knew I needed to get out of the apartment. But the sunlight really was causing me a lot of pain. So I figured out a way to do it. I would take night walks around the apartment complex. Beautiful moon, stars overhead. It was out in the country area. And that became a time where God and I had a lot of conversations in the dark with the sun, the stars shining down. So sometimes finding your opportunity to regulate yourself also means things shift and change, right? Becoming that new identity, becoming that new person, in relaunching that new identity for a whole new era. And because I chose to say, no matter what, I'm going to keep pressing forward, I became the person that you see today. So years after that car accident, I was in a worship service. I wasn't asking for healing anymore. I had made peace with this is just how my life is going to be now. I'm going to have the headaches. I'm just going to have to move through it. I'll just keep going through it. One step at a time, taking my night walks, doing what I can. But then during this worship service, there was a call from the stage. Somebody here in the audience had been in a car accident, debilitating head pain for a couple of years now. Now, I was so into the praise and worship, I didn't even really realize that he had called something from the stage, kind of like somebody, I sense somebody has a liver issue, or I sense somebody has a broken arm or something like that. That was this kind of call. Somebody had been in a car accident with debilitating head pain for several years. Well, those around me like start poking me like, hey, we know your story. That's you. That's you. And I'm like, what is happening? Because I had not heard it. And then he announced it again from the stage. And internally, I panicked. I'm not a panicker, but I panicked. I went, what am I supposed to do here? The very next day, I was supposed to be getting in a car and driving from Mississippi to Virginia to go to court where the car accident had happened in Virginia. I was supposed to testify in court how bad my life had been since this car accident. And I thought to myself, if I step forward and I'm healed, notice there wasn't a question in my mind I wouldn't be healed. I knew if I stepped forward, I was going to be healed. I knew without question that call was for me, without question. But my question became, what if everything happens? What happens to everything I've built for survival if I get healed? And oftentimes the unknown becomes really scary. And so that's when we really have to understand how to lean into our faith. God asked me a question in that moment because I was having a constant conversation. I'm like, Lord, I got to go to court tomorrow. What is happening here? I can't do this. How am I going to work through this? What? A million questions all at the same time. And God silenced my brain and he said, one question. Who do you trust more, me or the system? That was the moment. That was the moment that I had to face who I was trusting more. Because the system really was about me being in control of it, me being in survival mode, versus allowing God to do what he does best in all the best ways for me. That was the relaunch. It was a miracle. My headaches were gone. And to this day, I have never had another one of those headaches. To this day. It was a decision. And relaunching isn't about going back to who you were. Because even with my headaches healed, I was never, ever going to be the person before the car accident. I had too much. I had learned too much. I had grown too much. I had lived through too much. I could never go back to that person. But it's about letting yourself be seen as who you are now. With all the wisdom you have accumulated by all the things that you have lived through. So for some of you, a relaunch may look like joining a small group to connect with others, asking for a mentor, becoming a mentor, using your true gifts. Or perhaps it's about resting without guilt as you heal. As you step forward, your gifts that you've accumulated along the way, they don't disappear. And the gifts, talents, and abilities that you were born with, instilled in you by the Creator, they have been reassigned for your new season, adjusted, reshaped, molded differently for the new season that you're walking into. So you're not late, you are not behind, and you are being repositioned. You're stepping forward as who you have become. So now is the time to embrace your journey. So let's anchor this in. We've released, we've restored, and we're relaunching. So one hand over your heart. And I just want you to breathe for a second. And you're going to repeat with me what's on the screen. I release what is complete. I restore what sustains me. And I relaunch in alignment, not exhaustion. I release what is complete. I restore what sustains me. And I relaunch in alignment. Now, as you navigate these cycles of release, restore, relaunch, we are creating space for growth. We're building strength, and we are embodying these vibrant identities that each of you bring to the table. Each of you has a kingdom impact. Each of you. This world is not the same without you in exactly the capacity that you hold, with all the wisdom that you bring to the table for everything that you have lived through. We are meant to embrace 2026 and beyond. So you need to come home to who you already are in this moment. Now, if something softened for you during our time together, that wasn't about weakness. That was about truth landing. And that is how transformation happens. Self-awareness, receiving truth, and ready to transform. Release, restore, relaunch. And it's not with pressure, but with permission. Your permission to be who you are today and beyond. So, if this conversation has named maybe something that you've been carrying quietly, imagine what intentional time with the right tools and support could do. You don't need to become someone new. You need to come home to who you already are. And this next season, it's going to be built from that wholeness because you've laid down where you were, you've restored who you are, and you're relaunching into your new identity. So embracing that transformation, it does take time and trusting the process, which is why I so appreciate Alive at Last because they are there to help with their small groups and their mentors. And as you embark on this journey, remember to celebrate your growth and your honor to the uniqueness of who you are as you forge your path ahead. Honoring who you are is an incredible opportunity of experience. Now, wisdom is showing you it is time to do this differently. So out of everything that I've shared today, it's all been lived experience, not theory, not AI writing this for you. It is a real experience. And there are several people on the screen that could attest to it because they've walked through a lot of it with me, actually. Now, let's talk about that concept of really walking you through realignment when the old ways stop working. That's why alignment creates relief. The relief is the first sign that healing is working. Did you realize that? When you can take a deep breath, something has clicked. So restoring, the relaunching, they're not just insights. They're practices that require space, safety, and that consistency of repetition. Remember that one thing, that one anchor, that one habit to do each day. So connecting into a small group and a mentor who can walk life with you alongside of you consistently, right, is going to help you fortify a solid foundation, clarify life with wisdom, and build lifelong friendships. And those are the tools. They're going to support you as you relaunch in 2026 and beyond. And they're going to support you as you refuse to drag those unhealed patterns, that burnout, those old identities into the future. We're not dragging them into the future. They are staying in the past. We don't rush transformation, but we stabilize it. We release what's complete. We restore what sustains you. And we relaunch from alignment, not exhaustion. Now, I appreciate you guys so much for being here today and joining us. And if you've tried to power through before on your own, I'm here to tell you you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. And it didn't work because it wasn't failure. It's because you didn't have the tools. And now wisdom's telling you it's time to do this differently. And if this season matters, if this is what you're looking for, then the invitation is open. You can join Alive at Last in their small groups and becoming a mentor if you have that wisdom, or becoming a mentee going, I need more wisdom, right? I need somebody to walk alongside me. And we're going to drop in the chat that link for you. So sit with us, come to us when you're ready, because we're going to be here for you. And there are several useful things as gifts for you today on my actual website, the Linktree, and you can take the screenshot of that QR code and get right there. Lots of fun things on there for you. but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Well, before we get into the Q&A part, I just wanted to take a brief moment and say thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing all of this information because you're right. I mean, the wisdom with experience comes from the things that we've already lived through. And so it's not necessary that we have some kind of theory behind us or major study. The experiences and traumas and life that we've led, that's what the biblical scripture talks about going for wisdom. It's a combination of knowledge in the head and experience in the heart and restoration in our soul. So thank you so much for bringing all of that together. Like Crystal said, with Alive at Last, if you're not part of Alive at Last as a volunteer, that's something that you can easily do. Gwen put in the chat the direct link to sign up to be part of the Alive at Last team. You can do that by volunteering as a small group leader in the shelters that we have throughout the DFW area, or you can sign up to be a mentor. A mentor doesn't mean you have all the answers. It just means that you're about 5 steps ahead of the lady behind you and you're guiding them. And that's what the women need that we help at Alive at Last in the shelters. So we have training through our Mighty Network. We have training here in our Lunch and Learns with a variety of individuals. And again, this is recorded. So we have all our other recordings. We also have mentor trainings that I have done and are available on the Mighty Network. Again, you can explore any of those if you're interested in joining Alive at Last to not only continue that wisdom and growth as you become a mentor, but also to see that in others in our shelters. Also, the ladies that are in our shelters that will see this, do know that there is so much more resources in the Mighty Network for you. And if your mentor isn't sharing that with you or your small group leader isn't sharing that with you, please let me know. Most of you already know who I am. I'm Dr. Lynette Sim, Director of Mentorship for Alive at Last. And so you guys can contact me directly. But before we go, I've given you guys some time to think about this amazing presentation Crystal provided. If you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever, I'll open the floor. Thank you again, Crystal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a question. I love one of the things that you mentioned several times, Crystal, was the alignment process, and it was the relaunch, part of your relaunch point that you made. Could you just kind of give a little bit of description to what the alignment process looks like? I think sometimes, even I find myself feeling a bit fragmented. And so when you said alignment, I thought, wow, sounds really, really great. What do you say is a process? Are there some indicators for alignment?
I think that's a great question. When we talk about alignment, it is going to look a little different for each person, but overall, alignment is always going to be the order of who is creating the alignment in your life. So for those who are Jesus followers, it's going to be God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, creating that initial alignment for what the best steps are. Then it's you. And then as you are talking to him and identifying with wisdom, what does this look like in my life? You're going to ask some of those questions. Now, for some people, they want to journal those questions. Some people, it's a verbal conversation in their head. I have a lot of those with the Lord. And some people are actually, interestingly enough, using ChatGPT to ask some of those questions, which I'm just going to remind everybody is not Jesus. You can certainly leverage ChatGPT, but just remember Jesus is not in ChatGPT as you're looking for those answers. So when we talk about alignment, we really want to understand how God is directing our path. And so the short version is really when you have a decision to make, is asking the Lord, okay, Lord, is this decision from you? First of all, if it's not, shut the door, right? If it is, then I need confirmation just like Gideon did, right? So he put out the fleece, and he wanted the fleece wet and the ground dry. The next day, it was the opposite, right? The fleece dry and the ground wet. We can put out fleeces to make sure that we have confirmation of the alignment that we're heading into. Crazy as it is, I have gotten confirmation off of bulletin boards as I've driven down a highway before and went, oh, okay, I clearly see the sign now, Lord. And so you never know where those confirmations are going to come from. So don't just close yourself off to thinking, oh, it only can come through scripture. That's the first place, right? God talking to us through the word. But God has also given us this ability to look around our environment and to ask him to bring that confirmation to us. Gideon used a fleece. He didn't use the Torah, which is what he would have had available to him. He used a fleece. So when we are looking for that alignment, we want to ask that question, okay, Lord, is it from you? And then get confirmation for sure. And then once you have confirmation, some people will teach you that you need confirmation in 3 ways. I don't agree with that. I feel like God wants our obedience quickly. So once I have confirmation, I'm going to act on it. Now, I'm going to be truthful and authentic and tell you there are times where I act on things before I get the confirmation. Yeah, that doesn't ever seem to go well for me, and you would think I would have learned that lesson by now, but I get so excited about something that I just go after it, and then I forget to say, is it the right season? Because sometimes you hear things, you want to obey, you know, as soon as you hear them, that's truth, and God wants me to follow that. But you've missed the question, is it the right season? And so sometimes there's preparation for what's coming. So one of the things that I'm actually working on is a medical stability foundation program, and that has been 30 years in the making. So I thought it was all these other little things, right? But God's just recently shown me all of those little things come under this big umbrella, and this is what that's going to look like. And I didn't expect it to be like that. I thought it was all these little things. So sometimes when you're working on things, you're asking those questions, and you have to ask about the season, because all of us have something that we're birthing with him. And sometimes that's a quick birthing process, and sometimes it's the whole 10 months, because anyone that says pregnancy is 9 months did not know what 40 weeks was. That is a 10-month cycle. So, and as somebody who's been pregnant at 39 and a half weeks having that kid, that is a full 40 weeks. Right. So I hope that answered your question for alignment.
Any other questions?
I don't really have a question, but I would just like to say that this is really good information for myself. I really like the fact that you said what like where the Lord is leading you, and what is it that you are to release, what release really mean, and what it is that you need to release. I really, really like that, and the way that you put it and open up my eyes about that. Releasing is basically a time of growth and celebration, you know, because that we have to recognize that the old ways are no longer working. And so basically that is the completion of a season. And so I really, really like that, because sometimes, you know, I'm just going to speak of myself, you know, I didn't know this information. So it's like, instead of acting on it to go forward, you know, to embrace it and celebrate it, it's like, okay, I want to hold on to this because I build this here. But the Lord is basically bringing more information for you to grow and to go forward. And I like the fact that you said re-identifying, like your identity, you know, and redefining your gifts, basically. You know, I really like all of this information. It's been very, very helpful for me. And I'm so thankful to Ms. Gwen, too, for inviting me on here today. But I just want to thank you so much, Ms. Crystal, for just letting the Lord use you today, because it really opened up my eyes and have answered a lot of questions and have given me information needed to go forward. So thank you so much. May the Lord
Um,
bless you.
Thank you. And to you. And I'm so excited that you're going to be able to make space for what he's bringing in. And I can't wait to hear all about it.
I think we have time for one more question.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Okay, so yes, I'm also very grateful for all of this. It's very impactful and puts me back on track. The question that I have is, so where you say that it's okay to not feel guilty for being lazy, it's just a lot of the times I feel like that is so hard because our society today and our environment is telling us you're being lazy, like sometimes literally. Some people are telling you you're being lazy, and then but I recognize how important it is because even the God of the universe had a rest on the seventh day, and to have the Sabbath is a commandment along with thou shalt not kill. So I completely agree. Resting is so important. And but how do we combat that? And also the way you said that to release by walking on the beach. Not all of us have that opportunity to walk on the beach or walk outside at night, or a lot of the times we're just in like a really like, do you have any other suggestions of how to find that little safe space?
That's a great question. First of all, I just want to assure you, you have nothing to feel guilty about. Because when you realize that you need to take a moment, that's pretty impressive. That is wisdom. And so guilt and wisdom are completely different things. Now, the world is going to say, oh, but you should be doing this. I call those the shoulds. You don't get to should me. Those are your shoulds, not my shoulds. So God's going to tell me what I need to be doing, not you. And so that's that boundary piece that's so important that we have to lay down for ourselves to say, you're welcome to your opinion, and just leave it there. They are. They are welcome to have whatever opinion, but you don't have to take it. So one of the things I often tell my daughter is you do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. And so when people start telling you what you should be doing, that's an argument as far as I'm concerned, right? So you don't have to attend it. You can just say, thank you for your opinion. You're being kind, you're being loving, but you don't have to take it because God and you are who need to identify what's best in your life, right? So that would be step one. I would encourage you to kind of think through. But then two, where's your safe space? So for you, you got a busy life, just what little that I've met you a couple times and, by Zoom, and you've got a lot going on. And so when I asked the question for you, what brought you peace? What came to your heart or your mind?
Well, what I put down is I'm pretty busy, and I that's one of the reasons why I like my daily devotionals and I share them with my friends and family and the people I meet. I just pray over them, and it gives me peace. But lately, I have been really busy and haven't been able to do that. And then my phone, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, it's over full, and I'm trying to get rid of all of it so I can send stuff out. And I'm like, so anyhow, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. So I want to challenge you on something. I want to challenge you to make a standing date in your phone at a specific time, just as if it was a medical appointment. Because if you needed to go to the cardiologist, or if you needed to go to a neurologist, or if you needed to go get blood work, you would not miss that appointment, would you? And your place of peace is that important because you cannot serve anyone else if you are not taking care of yourself. I know it is a trite example that you have got to put on your oxygen mask first to be able to help anyone else, or you pass out. And that's as caregiver, that's as person who's living their life, that's as a person on the team for Live at Last, that's a person running your family, and caring for them, like whatever labels that you have in your life, you can't serve any of those unless you are taking care of yourself. So I want to encourage you to treat that as that situation. Figure out the best time, put it on your phone calendar. My calendar lives on my phone, but put it on your phone calendar or whatever calendar you have, and you do not miss that appointment. And that means if you do have other appointments, you have to work around that appointment. Because if that was in fact a cardiology appointment, you wouldn't move other appointments to miss that one, would you? So keep it. This is not, I'm going to be legitimately honest. It's not going to be easy to make sure you keep that appointment. Give yourself some grace for the first couple of weeks as you're doing it. One, you don't already have it in your calendar, so you have other things probably happening at those times. So give it a good 2 or 3 weeks as you're being more and more consistent, and that flexibility that time might move for those first couple of weeks. But I would tell you by week 4, you should have a set time and have figured out whether that's early in the morning or whether that's in the evening or maybe it's lunchtime. And whatever that appointment is, that is your time. Now, that also means you have to set yourself up well. So do you have your Bible on your phone or your devotional on your phone, or do you need it in hand? What that looks like. I have everything on my phone nowadays. So I have my devotional, my Bible, all of that on my phone. So long as I have my phone and it's charged, that's important, it's good. But you were saying your phone's full. So if those things are on your phone, then I want you to make another appointment in your calendar to dump your phone. And maybe you could do that in the next couple of days. And give yourself an hour to just go deal with your phone and get that stuff off of there and onto your computer, onto something else, so you have the space available to keep your appointment. I know you can do it, and you're worthy of it, and you're not failing. You're not failing. Okay?
Well, thank you so much again, Crystal. So that's a warning to all of us here on this call that if there's an appointment that you haven't taken the time to make, mine was the dentist, and I made it this morning. I had pushed it off for the last 4 months. I have severe dental anxiety, but I know I love to smile, and so I'd better take care of this smile. So I made that appointment. So if you need that appointment to take care of your physical body, then also make that appointment to take care of your emotional body. So any of you who would like to get connected in the Mighty Network, who hasn't, by all means, put your email address in the chat. If there's some more information or more questions, or you want to reach out to Crystal, again, put your email in the chat. She can reach out to you individually. But for now, that is Alive at Last's Lunch and Learn. Thank you so much for your time. Again, thank you, Crystal, for sharing your wisdom with us and with everybody here at Alive at Last and on the Mighty Network. So thank you again. God bless and have a beautiful, blessed, restful day.